Manager at Community Energy South. We'll talk a bit more about who we are as we go through today. We've also got Sarah Macbeth from Community Energy South and Emma Giles, who work on the comms and engagement side of things, and Ben Dodd, who many of you know, who's from Green Fox Community Energy in Leicestershire. So we will be sharing some slides. Like I said, please, if you haven't done so already, put your full name, if you can, rename yourself to show your full name and where you come from. This is the like I said, this is the second in a series of webinars that we'll be doing throughout the programme. First one was in July. It's good to see you if you've come back. If you're new to the topic, we'll be running through a little bit more about the programme, doing a refresher, and then talking about progress. And then we've got a session where we'd like to hear from you. So I'm just going to share some slides with me, and then we can kick. So I hope everybody can see that. Ben, can you see that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's great.
So, scaling up community energy in Leicestershire, that's why we're here. This is all about what we can do to encourage the development of community energy. Just like I said, we'll just run through an overview of the programme and its objective and provide an update. Then we'd like to talk about how we think community energy can move forward in Leicestershire and how we can really foster the development of a network to make sure it's sustainable in the longer term. We'll have a session for about half an hour or so with breakout rooms where we'd like to hear from you, what your sort of ambitions are, how you think you might like to get involved within your community. Then we'll reconvene, come all back together, feedback from those sessions and talk through the next steps. So like I said, we're from myself, Sarah and Emma are from Community Energy South. Which is a little bit of a misnomer because we're not just based in the south anymore. When we started out, we were focused mainly on the development of community energy in the southeast. We sort of started out in East Sussex, but we've grown now to cover the whole of the country. What we've done is we've developed a step-by-step process called the Pathways Programme, which has been designed to support the development of community energy and community energy groups in a particular area. So we work very closely with local authorities, with regional authorities, and with the net zero hubs across England. Our approach has been endorsed by DESNZ, which is the Department of Energy Security and Net Zero, which was previously BEIS. So they recognise that this is a really tried and tested model that supports community energy, and it's one that they're happy to promote. So Pathways creates the foundations and really creates the development of a community energy network in an area by supporting skill development, provides mentoring, and bringing together the knowledge of our experience that is required to foster the development of community energy. So through Pathways, we've supported 48 community energy groups since 2001 in a variety of areas. Which you can see along the bottom: Surrey, Hampshire, Essex, Suffolk, and we're working with new authorities all the time. So when we talk about community energy, there's sort of two main strands that that are involved. We've got powering up projects, which is mainly around sort of development of generation projects that create renewable electricity, sort of solar panels on roofs, community-owned solar farms in an area where people sort of collectively come together, raise the finance and develop projects from there. And then we've got powering down projects, which refers to sort of community-led energy advice. So this is people who are trusted people within their community, provide free and impartial energy advice to targeted people who they might think are struggling with their energy bills. So this is really a key part of community energy, where They're impartial, they're not associated with any selling of anything. And those are the sort of key features of community energy. So I'm just going to hand over to Ben, who's going to talk about our programme and what we're doing in Leicestershire. Sorry,
Thanks,
Ben.
Laura.
Just prompt me when you need to move on.
Will do. Just really a recap of where we are. Some of you are new to it, or some of you may have read it online, and it's just an opportunity to catch up on where we are. We managed to get the Green Fox Community Energy South and Leicestershire County Council working in partnership have managed to get 2.56 million demonstrator project funded through Innovate UK. Laura, if we can go back to the last slide, please. You've just whizzed on a bit too much. Yeah, that's cracking. Thank you. And it's a 21 months program. So we started in March, so we've already done 6 months. So time slips away. So we've got to crack on. And part of the project is to develop a local area energy plan. Now, what happens with councils, both at parish level and district level, and also county level, the 3 tiers that we have in Leicestershire, it's easy to have a plan. It's easy to declare a climate emergency and want to do something about it, but it's much harder to know what to do. So local authorities are engaging with organisations like the Energy Systems Catapult and ARUP to deliver a local area energy plan, and that allows you to see on a granular level energy where you are. So you will be able to see through this plan, you'll be able to see your street, you'll be able to see your neighbourhood, and then you're looking at the challenges, what that brings. So you have an overview and would link into any parish plan or neighbourhood plan that you've got as well in terms of trying to deliver net zero in your area. For our project, the local area energy plan is going to be delivered by the Energy Systems Catapult, and so that should be available next year. One of the reasons we were very keen to do the local area energy plan because it creates a pipeline of projects as we go on, and I'll talk about that in a moment. When we started a couple of years ago with this program, when we were starting to develop it, Green Fox and Harborough Energy, we're the only 2 organisations in Leicestershire that are delivering community energy. And therefore there is a real lack of capacity within the county. And if we're going to want to make a real impact, we want more groups to form and try and deliver community-owned renewables and energy efficiency as well, which Laura talked about. We want to do it in a strategic way, and that's why we've chosen the Pathways programme, because it's a tried and tested programme to engage with the community. And that the aim obviously is to develop a thriving and sustainable community energy sector in Leicestershire. So a great idea, a great chance to get involved. Next slide, please. So we've started progress to date. We've reached out to as many groups and communities and parish councils as we can. We've used the existing networks, but we've also tried to go out through press and media to try to pick up on and some new people and encourage them to come. Now, casting our net widely is really about trying to engage people with energy and community energy. Lots of groups are already doing things like recycling and biodiversity, but actually to get your hands dirty on the energy side and become energy champions and actually do something in the community is much harder. So again, we're wanting to try to bring people in that might not have thought about that before. So we've held 2 launch webinars and developed an online survey just to try to sort of see what the appetite is for the new program. And we're developing a mailing list, so hopefully everybody signed up for the mailing list, and so that will give you news on what's happening as we move forward. And then the other thing that we've been trying to do is have meetings with district and borough councils, because we've had the county council were leading into the bid to Innovate UK, but of course that then goes down to the district councils, and we're wanting to try to get them on board. And so we've been talking to senior officers in the district and borough councils to allow them to know about the project, but allow them to get involved with the project if they want to. And again, I'll come on to that and what that means in a little while. So while we're waiting for the local area energy plan to be developed, and it'll be launched next year, we've tried to take a proactive approach and look for projects as we sort of go along, and we've got a number of projects I'm going to talk to you about, and of course we've attended events and everything to promote the program. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we've done to start off with is look at Leicestershire schools. Leicestershire schools have a huge potential to have PV on their roofs and for it to be owned by the local community. However, no study has been done of how much PV could go on schools across the county. So Green Fox applied for a £40,000 grant from the Community Energy Fund, which allowed them to survey 260 schools for solar PV, and we found that 161 schools were deemed possible, and the whole and what would happen from that is 12 megawatts of capacity would be delivered if every school had PV on. Now, of course, that's like a small solar farm in itself. So we're going to develop that a little bit more through some modelling. And just at the bottom of your slide there is a sort of like a breakdown of the different schools. So you've got grant maintained, academy schools, and independent schools, and how much PV capacity is possible on those schools. Next slide, please. Just staying with schools, we've been developing a project over in Hinckley, and that's Hollycroft Primary School. And we've been looking at that in terms of our first share offer through this program, and what we've managed to do with that school. It's a new school. It's a zero carbon school, and what we've managed to do with that is go through all the permissions and consents that we need to actually go out for share offer with schools. So we've managed to agree the lease with the local authority and with the school, and signed what you call a power purchase agreement with the school. So we sell them the electricity generated from the panels, and it's been signed off by the Department of Education, because again, you have to get permission to do that. And we are hoping to have a share offer out, I would say, in the next few months. So that's rather exciting. And in the meantime, on the back of the survey that we did through the Community Energy Fund, we've applied for another £100,000 to approach these 161 schools to take part in putting PV on their roofs. They're going to be self-selecting, so we'll go out to 161 and say, look, this is the offer. If you'd like to take it up, please come back. And they've got to come back with some half-hour data and bits and pieces, and then they'll be enrolled in the project, and we will take it from there and see if we can put PV on their buildings. And that should be buildings across the district. So it's probably schools wherever you are. There might be one or two schools taking part in this program. So that's rather exciting as well. We have the next slide, please. Okay, so I'm also going to talk a little bit about larger projects. In the past, community energy, certainly Green Fox, we've wanted to do larger projects, but we haven't really had the wherewithal to do it. So in other words, we approach the county council, or you approach developers, but of course you're approaching them without any money, and of course you have to raise the money through share offers. So we've teamed up with an organisation called Thrive Renewables, who will then fund the wind turbines or solar farms up front, and then we put them into community ownership with share offers afterwards. And that's a really good way of being able to think big as well. So we might be thinking about PV on a school, but there's no reason why we don't look at wind turbines, or we look at solar farms across the county. Next slide, please. So doing a little bit of the research that we've done already, we've identified a number of buildings, and I just wanted to share some of these buildings with you because some of them are leisure centres. So you've got a leisure centre on the left-hand side there, top with a swimming pool, and then you've got a shot of the building above. So a leisure centre will take a lot of electricity to heat it and to keep it going. But then you have to look at actually the roof space for PV as well. So we are going to model these buildings, and we have John from De Montfort University on the call today, and he'll be doing some of these buildings. So we have a leisure centre, we've got a village hall on the right-hand side, we've got a community hub down the bottom left, and some of you might recognise Brox Hill Visitor Centre, and Obin Wigston have just moved in there, and those are their offices at the moment, and they're interested in renewing some of their PV on their building as well. Next slide, please. Again, just to give you a bit more of a flavour. So you've got a town hall on the left-hand side, top left. Again, looking at the building from above, really tricky to put PV on it, but they were keen to do it. So we've done a little bit of modelling for them. And so they've got that at the moment. Again, on the right-hand side, you've got another sort of like a swimming pool, nice flat roof for the PVs to go on, a lot of energy. They'll take a lot of energy. And then bottom left, really interesting project in Colville. And that's the Palace, and it's like a bingo hall. It looks a lovely building. I can't wait to get inside that and just have a look. But again, that roof looks as though that can take a significant amount of PV. And then on the right-hand side, right-hand bottom, is a new youth community centre. So that gives you an idea of the flavour of the buildings that we're looking at. Next slide, please, Laura. And I will pass to Laura for this slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. That's given us a really good overview of the sort of progress we've made to date and the sort of opportunities that this programme will bring, which is really exciting. I'd just also like to apologise because at the first part of the presentation I got very distracted by my phone going off from my child's school saying that he's unwell and I have to go and pick him up. So we might just need to have a little rethink of the next step of the programme, but bear with us. So we've come up with a suggested plan for Leicestershire, bearing in mind the sort of timescales of the programme. We've got support in place. CS has support in place until November 2025, which is a relatively short time frame. However, we know that there's a lot of sort of community groups and active communities across the county. We also know that from our experience that community energy projects are quite resource intensive and they can take a lot of work, and much more can be achieved if we work together and collaborate. So what we're proposing to do through this programme is not necessarily create a whole load of separate, disparate community energy groups all doing their own thing. What we'd like to do is bring together all these emerging community groups, community energy groups, and really build and foster this network approach with possibly a central hub, sort of Leicestershire Community Energy or whatever it might be called, to coordinate and support community energy across the county. And that way, we feel it kind of has sort of sustainability in the longer term, and it provides that ongoing support that community energy needs. So it's really about helping to bring communities together, to develop projects, and making sure that they're supported in the longer term to do so. So that's kind of what we're aiming towards with this programme. Build that network, create that central hub. And it's a very much a tested model. If you came along to the previous webinar in July, we talked about Low Carbon Hub, which is in Oxfordshire, which has a very similar model. So more can be achieved together. Just a little bit more about the support that we have on offer through this programme to help foster this network and hub. We have training and skills development, and at the end of the webinar today, we'll set out the sort of next 2 sessions that we'll have on specific topics to really enable you to get to know a little bit more about sort of community energy and what it involves. and help support the development of projects in those areas. We have templates and tools such as how-to guides, policy document, comms materials, and those kinds of things that will enable projects to get off the ground so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We'll have support in place to identify suitable projects. I mean, Ben's given a really good overview of the sorts of community energy projects that GreenFox are currently looking at. We'll provide you with support to help you identify projects in your area, whether it's suitable community centres, leisure centres, possibly businesses, but we'll work with you to help understand what makes a community energy project, and then if it does make a good community energy project, support you to develop it out. We talked about in the beginning energy advice. We can bring in a sort of package of support for you to develop energy champions for your area, energy advice, project support, whatever you think is most appropriate and most applicable to your community, because we know full well that you know your area best, you know what would work in your area and what sort of project would work best. And we also have, which is quite exciting in the context of this programme and community energy, we have startup funding available. So we have a little bit of funding that will help support project development, provide any sort of feasibility assessment, any sort of comms materials and tools and that you might need for those energy advice programs. So that's a really exciting prospect. So now we're going to break out into breakout rooms where we want to hear a little bit more from you about what's going on in your area, what projects you think might work in your area, and get your view on what you want to do moving forward. We're going to take about 25-30 minutes to do that, and we will come back and hear sort of feedback, what the group said for the next stage of the programme. So we will be allocating people, I think, Sarah, is that right? People will be automatically assigned based on we've kind of broken it down according to where we think you are in the county and sort of tried to group people geographically. And that will be we will just automatically go into our breakout rooms, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Emma will be driving this.
Yeah.
Do we click stop and join?
Yeah.
Are we expecting a few more people back in from the other breakout room, Emma?
Yeah, we're just waiting for Ben and Ian, but it'll close automatically when it's ready. I think we've dropped a couple of people off from our room. The other Ian was.
Yeah, we've lost.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, we've lost one from ours. Yeah.
Okay. There was some really, really interesting discussions in the room that we were in. Ben, would you like to feedback from your room first, and then we can.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it was. Yeah, Laura, it was really good to get people's opinions and just find out where they are. So I didn't know about the energy advice clinic in that's run by Leicester Community Links. That was really interesting, and they're sort of doing the same sort of work on energy efficiency and energy champions. And I think certainly this program can link in with that. I think that's quite exciting. Individual projects came out. There was a county park and a country park visitor centre, and also projects with heat pumps and using the water from the mines and going down and trying to get the heat from that. We talked a little bit about bringing in other people from outside, whether it be master's students or other expertise that can come to the group. And I think there was a thing about identifying the best way forward. especially for smaller communities within things like parish councils and things like that, that need some expertise in direction and what they can do and what maybe are the easier wins. We talked about the business case development as well. How does that actually work? And so that therefore we can be quite transparent with what we're looking for. And I know that's going to come into perhaps the next webinar that we're going to do, but it's interesting that it's coming up straight away. Adam from the Leicestershire Diocese Church of England schools and some of the buildings there were really interesting. And there's some challenges with that because, of course, because some of the churches are only used once a week and they're large buildings. But there's some pilots going on there that we could link into as well. So I think all of that work is quite exciting. And I hope I've covered most things from our group, but please do say if I've missed anything out.
Okay, thank you, Ben. So in our group, we had kind of, I guess, 5 or 6 communities that were represented. Colville Can, which is doing some really good work in that community and is just about to do a share offer to own a 3-story building in the town. And interested in developing a number of projects, including potentially solar panels on its roof, which could be community owned. Also offering energy, to sort of developing this energy advice and retrofit service for the people of Colville and surrounding areas. And possibly we can offer, or there might be potential to link that in with the wider project, and we can offer support for that. We heard from Harbour Energy, who obviously are one of the existing community energy groups, but has been possibly a little dormant in the past few years, but is really interested in kickstarting the organisation again, bringing in, but really needs support in terms of bringing in new members and possibly new directors to take new projects forward. And there seems to be appetite within the group to develop more projects across the borough, a district of Harborough, which we can definitely support on. Heard a really interesting view from Parish Council in Houghton, if I pronounced that correctly, which has got a number of, which has got a solar farm in the area, but is very interested in looking at the possibility of developing a wind turbine on a recreation ground in the village, which we could possibly support through the Readiness Fund, and look at whether or not it's a feasible project, which would be really interesting. But again, locally interested in developing energy advice and retrofit advice for households in the village. So definitely a theme emerging here about developing a sort of home energy support service for Leicestershire. We also we've been made aware of Green Doctors Leicestershire, which is another organisation offering home energy advice, which again, Ben, it would be great to link them in with an existing service and see how we can coordinate with them. Fayed mentioned that he does 12 to 15 visits per week at the moment and is gaining more and more interest. So anything that we can do to support that would be great. Sport in Desford are doing some great work in the community and on the sporting centre there, and are also sort of interested in bringing more people into that network, and whether or not we can support to grow their outreach locally, provide any sort of advice on that. And I think that was it. But it was really, really interesting discussions. Finally, John at De Montfort University, who's also involved in the wider programme, GreenerFuture Leicestershire, raised some really interesting points based on a PhD that he's been working on, recently completed, around how retrofit advice really needs to be marketed in the right way and also targeted for maximum impact to be able to pay market who might need sort of particular support to enable them to encourage take up of measures such as heat pump. So definitely something to talk about at a later date is how we reach people who can pay and make sure they're receiving not conflicting information but factually correct information that will motivate them to retrofit their homes properly. So it was really, really interesting. Thanks to all who contributed.